You're welcome once more again to my lecture series for today. We'll be looking at organic structure, the basis, the foundation. But then, what does it entail? Carbon forms the backbone for all organic compounds. But it is important to note that carbon is tetravalent in nature. What does it mean to be tetravalent in nature? It means that carbon has 4 bonds around it. 4 bonds. So these bonds could have different substituents. But let's begin with the basic one. If we happen to have all H here, perfect. This is the simplest form of hydrocarbons, where we can have just the methane family, with carbon having 4 bonds. So it's a must that carbon must have 4 bonds around it. But now let's look at this. How can we represent the structures for each of these 3? I know it's simple. You might have it difficult, but then we're going to do justice to it now. Now, this is 2 carbon. And how many hydrogen? 6 hydrogen. So first we need to do is to put out the 2 carbons. 1 carbon, the 2nd carbon. Yes. So if we have done that, that means what was left for us is hydrogen. Having it at the back of your mind that carbon must be tetravalent. So this carbon here has already 1 bond. So how many bonds is left to complete the 4 bonds? 3. So that means we're going to have 1, 2, 3. That's the other 3 bonds that are left. And each of these 3 bonds denotes a single hydrogen each. What about the 2nd carbon? It already has 1 bond bonding to this other carbon, so it is left with 3 as well. So that gives it this representation. So you can see that there are 2 carbon and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 hydrogen, giving it a holistic skeletal representation. So, and this becomes ethene because it has an alkane group, meaning it has single bonds between carbon to carbon. Yes, it is a saturated hydrocarbon. So let's get to the next one. 2 carbons still. There's the 1st carbon, there's the 2nd carbon. But then, in this case, it has 4 hydrogen. 4 hydrogen. So how are we going to represent it, and how was the structure going to look like? Now, having known fully well that carbon must be how many bonds? 4. So now, but then we have only just 4 hydrogen. So what do? Now, this is going to have one of the bonds, and this other bonds. Now, if this also has 1 bond and the other bond, and all of them is hydrogen, 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 hydrogen. Now, it has completed the 4 hydrogen here, but there is a problem then, because the carbon is not satisfied yet, because it has just 3 bonds. So how do we satisfy it? We only do this by introducing another bond, making it double. Now, at this level, it is now known as to be an unsaturated hydrocarbon, ethene. Alright, likewise for the last representation, we have 1 carbon, the 2nd carbon, but now it has 2 hydrogen. So if this is one of the hydrogen and this is the other hydrogen, that means this carbon has 2 bonds, just 2 bonds. So 2 other bonds are left. So how do we introduce those 2 other bonds? 1 and 2. And same thing will be satisfied for this other carbon as well. And this becomes ethine. Now, looking at this expression, you see that we have been able to represent the skeletal representation of each of these condensed form, giving us an alkane group, an alkene group, and an alkyne group. I hope you understand this basis. Thank you so much. God bless you. Don't forget, success is only for the brave.